So we finally have come to an end with the investment on the Nazeistras devotion, and I gotta say, I feel like this gun is pretty underrated. Now we're gonna be getting into why that is, how you can use it, and why you should use it. Now, of course, starting out, I want to start off with the unique ability on this gun. What it's bringing to the table essentially is something called fanaticism, where on hitting an enemy's weak point, it inflicts the unique ability, the devotion mark, on the enemy or on the target enemy. Now, the other component to this is that on hitting an ally, that ally's shield is restored at the cost of your MP. If your current MP is less than the MP cost, this effect is not triggered. So this is definitely going to be really good, especially when we're talking about the second component for characters like Eugen, when you're talking about characters that might have a much higher MP pool to pull from and that are supporting. This is a really, really good gun. But outside of that, this is still an excellent gun for just weak point damage, just doing damage, period. It's a really good gun. And then with the devotions mark, this is something that the entire party is able to take advantage of when it is up, and it can be constantly reprocced, which is the amazing thing about it. Now, of course, real quick, I want to show you guys the build that I'm currently running. Now, I did mention this a little bit in the Blair video, but I did say I was going to get a little bit more in depth with, what exactly the build is consisting of and why I'm building this build this way, right? So what I currently have, and I've tested a couple of different things, and I'll kind of show you guys some alternatives. We have right now a crit build, which again, a little bit of weak point, but definitely mainly a crit build. It's really important to understand, like if we look at the base values, right? Base values here just kind of give you a clear indication of what you can do. We have firearm critical hit rate at 36% with a 2 times on the crit damage. And so from there, I kind of already knew like, hey, this is going to be a high crit value that we're going to be having these crit mods being multiplied into. So I was like, this is going to work out pretty well. So when we're actually looking at the very first, like I would say like build that I have here, we have better concentration, which is firearm crit hit damage, 43%. We have insight focus, which is going to be giving you some firearm critical hit rate with firearm critical damage at 4%, 13 and 4%. Rifling enforcement, probably one of the very first mods that you're going to actually want to level. And you should just already have this leveled anyway. Firearm attack plus 32%. One of the next ones you're definitely going to want to level for sure. Action reaction, firearm attack plus 61% with recoil of 20. I would say that you can technically counteract that 20% recoil if it is bothering you, but if that recoil is not bothering you, then you don't have to worry about it. Like for me personally, I am a D2 player and all I actually played was hand cannon, so the recoil actually doesn't bother me at all, whereas for someone else it might actually bother them. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Now we also have the better insight, which is firearm critical hit rate plus 35%. We have a fire rate increase of plus 25%. Now keep in mind, this is a single shot, like single tap, right? So you have to, obviously shoot, pull the trigger yourself. But with the fire rate increase, this is going to allow you to be able to shoot faster. There are some mods that will decrease your fire rate, so this can also be utilized to counteract some of that, decreasing of fire rate. But it just kind of all depends on what you end up building. We also have the concentration priority, which is a firearm critical hit damage of 36% and a reload time modifier of minus 30%. Now, I will say that the base reload time modifier on this is a 1.5 seconds. But once you put this on, it brings it almost up to 2 seconds. So it does feel a lot slower compared to the 1.5, but 1.9 is still really quick. But I feel like if you play with it and it's at that 1.5 and then it changes, that is a drastic change. So you can consider like trying to like mitigate or, counteract that reload time modifier. But for me personally, it wasn't bad enough to where, when you're starting to talk about mixing in abilities and things of that nature, the 2-second reload, I was like, okay, cool. That's like fine. Right. So for me, I liked it. So that's what I decided to stick with. Now, on top of that, what we have here is weak point damage plus 35%. And then we have the dopaminergic activate, which is on a weak point hit, firearm critical hit rate plus 45.5%, and firearm critical hit damage plus 69.7%, and it's on a cooldown of 5 seconds. Now, there is an alternative build that I do like to use as well. This is when I want to burn because I'm using Blair, and that's how I like to, try to proc his passive. This is going to be taking advantage, and this is another recommendation since we're on this screen. Weak point expansion is another excellent mod to go on this gun. What you're basically getting on the weak point, you're going to be getting a scaled amount. I currently have mine at 92%, but it goes even higher. I think it's like 120, 40 or something, like somewhere around there. Extra weak point damage is on an 8-second cooldown, so it's super huge damage. And then I would change some of the mods around. So instead of toxic enhancement, I actually go for the fire enhancement. So that ends up kind of being like just shifted around, and I have those slotting done correctly. So I take this weak point off. I end up putting something else here, which I think more than likely would probably be like fire conductor, because that's able to give me more firearm attack on burns. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about building it, but this is just like a more generally accessible way of doing it. Now, the last slot I want to talk about is this toxic enhancement. The reason why this is here, this can actually be any of the attributes, right? So the reason why this is here is because this is an extra additive for damage. It is not the focal point of the gun, but it is extra to the gun. So it adding even at the 8%, or even at the extra toxic attack is going to be 8% of the firearm attack. So even though I can't currently like really level this too much outside of like the one time, that's still extra damage. So even if you slap mods on and they're not leveled, ones like these are extra in conjunction to what you already have. So you're still going to prioritize your other mods first, and then these could be things like if you're realizing, man, I'm not gonna have enough space for a maxed out one, it does not mean not to apply it. Still put it on there because this is extra. It is 8% of my firearm attack, where when you look at my firearm attack on this gun, it's actually pretty high. So if we actually go back here, on this gun, it's at 78,000, almost 80K firearm attack on this specific gun. So when you're talking about getting 8% extra damage off of that, that actually ends up adding up. So I definitely would advise you guys to take advantage of that. Okay, so on regular enemies, just to kind of give you guys a POV of what this looks like, now you see right there, we hit, that was like about 522K, like, right, on a weak point hit. Now, the thing is that you can scale that much higher. I think I've hit as hard as like close to 1 million, like it was like 700 or 800K ish on a regular enemy. Again, that is also factoring in like when you have your correct attribute, if certain things are being resistance, if you have like a scaling against a certain type of enemy, whether it be like the immortal versus like Colossus, etc., right? So those things are going to play a huge part into it, but you'll see that that damage is pretty consistent. One of the main things I typically try to aim for always is like the head, right? Because that's going to always be giving me that damage. Like if you start hitting lower, and this is where like I guess kind of like using these types of guns, you'll notice the damage is going to descale. It's like 140K. So hitting weak points is going to be like one of the main, like I would say, sticks to how this gun works. But when you're also looking at, again, just the overall generalized damage, if you're not critting, you're still hitting like 100K a shot, which is like still really nice. But again, we want that super scale. We want to be doing like damn near 500,000 on it like that, so it's pretty consistent. And then what you notice is that that token mark will proc, and that is now going to allow your allies to also be able to take advantage of that. So every single time you hit those weak points, you get that devotion to proc. It is going to be absolutely insane. Now, we're not looking at this gun from a support, like nature, because I'm not playing a support, right? I was really honestly trying to see and find something that I could just kind of go crazy with, gunsling with like this. And then keep going about my business. And it's a fun gun. Now I'm going to show you guys this real quick on a boss as well, so you can kind of see some of the damage differences. Okay, so here we are in a public devourer. I just want to kind of show you guys hitting the weak points, how this gun actually looks scaling on a boss, before I actually showed you what it looked like on a regular enemy, because regular enemies is going to clear house. But of course, I think a lot of value for a lot of guns is how effective it can be on a boss, for example, like in the Void Intercepts. All right, so let's actually do this. I'm gonna try not to use my abilities too much, so you can see some of that damage, right? Right? So I took off the poison mod just so that it was a little bit more visible. Right? Hold on. Yeah, there's a glare here. So I could actually end this boss pretty quick if I wanted to, if I added my skill. But just so you can kind of see that value, right? He's gonna go immune in a second. So look at that. We're hitting like 300 Ks. And then, of course, factoring in that extra poison damage would also be a thing as well. All right, so let's see what we got here as far as the poison locations. All right, now watch this. Ooh, hit me pretty hard. I can go for my fireball, get rid of this quicker. There we go, flamethrower, not fireball. All right. I helped them out. So yeah, there you go. You see that reload time? Like, it's like, it kind of sucks, but it's like, okay. Like, it's manageable. Okay. So let's go back to trying to hit some of those weak points. Because that's where we're getting some of that super scale damage. All right, so now we got that out of the way. I'll throw a fireball here. I know they're probably like, he hasn't used one of his Blair abilities yet. Like, all right, here we go. One more. Whoop. Oh, you said you wanted another? Oh, man. Teammate dropped. It was not expecting that. Oh, that animation canceled me. Still hit, I think, though. Oh, nice. I think we got one more fireball. No, we don't. He dropped. So let's just go sick on him. I think one more immunity. Dude, why is he so focused on me right now? There we go. It's like, you're just trying to kill me while I'm recording, huh? But either way, that's how the gun looks on a boss, for example. And again, we're talking about, you know, you can alternate the mods so that it actually is doing like advantage to disadvantage, you know, advantage it at any situation. But at any point, you kind of want to have two attributes if you can help it. So that's essentially what it would look like. So that's going to be that with this one, guys. I hope that this video was able to give you some more insight on the Nazeistras Devotion. We're going to be moving on to some different guns. We're going to have a ton of other videos. I have a really special video that's going to be coming on the channel. So yeah, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Everyone stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.